The people themselves were part of the entertainment. They saw themselves as part of this unfolding, constantly moving spectacle. Some were not pleased with the way in which aristocratic and poor would mingle together. They said that they were jumbled together as in a common grave, which is a rather dismal view of the gardens, but I think most people who came here would come to look at the statues, to enjoy walking in the trees, this sort of ambience of nature in what was becoming increasingly built-up, urbanised London. They would sit and have dinner, and they would listen to music by Handel performed in front of the dinner boxes.
Handel was a master of the grand musical statement, and modern audiences are still captivated by his bold, large-scale pieces, like the music for the Royal Fireworks, which was first heard at a legendary public rehearsal in Vauxhall Pleasure Gardens.
Public rehearsal of Handel's firework music made an enormous impact. There were huge numbers. London Bridge was the only route across the river, and so it was jam-packed with coaches and carriages, and apparently a group of footmen had a public brawl and some nobleman got injured.
And how many people do you actually think crammed in here to witness this spectacle?
About 12,000. I think he always had his eye on popular success of a kind, where he could do it without compromising his musical or artistic integrity.
Handel was nearly 65 and still composing prolifically, but now he began to use his status as the country's leading composer to support charitable causes. The Foundling Hospital was Britain's first home for abandoned and illegitimate babies. William Hogarth was already a major benefactor, and Handel now decided to join him.
God, looking at that, as with all Hogarth, you just sense just how seething and basically most people's experience of life was so unpleasant.
As you see all sides of 18th century life. The March of the Guards. He raffled it to raise money for the hospital, and he gave the spare tickets to the hospital. There was a few that were unsold, and one of those happened, perhaps not by chance, to be the winning ticket, so the hospital got the painting as well as the proceeds of the raffle.
How did Handel come to be involved?
He first turned up in the council committee minutes offering to do a benefit concert in 1749, and the concert was arranged within about 3 weeks, and he wrote some new music for it, the Foundling Hospital anthem, and put it together with the other new music that he'd written that year to make a very popular, sold-out concert.
So this is clearly a way that he could make a difference. When obviously Hogarth could auction paintings and so on, Handel had to do gigs.
Yes, very much in the Live Aid theme of today. He did the benefit concerts of the 18th century.
Blessed, blessed, blessed are they, blessed, blessed are they that considereth the poor and the needy. The Lord will deliver them in time of trouble.
The anthem that Handel composed specially to be performed at his Foundling Hospital benefit concerts brilliantly demonstrates his ability to combine sincere spirituality with rigorous practicality. It's basically a recruiting song for the charity, but it works by inviting the listener into a sort of feel-good experience about charitable giving.
This is Handel's last will and testament. He wrote a will in 1750, and he leaves a bequest of the score and parts of Messiah to the Foundling Hospital, which enabled them to carry on their charity concerts after his death.
Seeing Handel's will really fascinated me. His handwriting was as bold, clear and forceful as I imagine the man himself was. I was keen to see some more, particularly some of his actual music manuscripts. And in the British Library they've conserved one of the most poignant, the manuscript for Jephthah, his last great oratorio.
What happens is that in 1751-2, his eyesight starts to fail. This is Handel's, as it were, typical handwriting. Very few changes, and those that are made very, very clearly. He may leave some things, details of the orchestra to fill in later, but pretty well by the time we're through, there's a draft of something for every movement. And when he gets to the bottom of this page, you see the 13th February 1751, his annotation there is he couldn't go on because of the trouble with his eyesight, and he couldn't do any more. Now, this was doubly troublesome because not merely had he not finished the score, but the first night was only 10 days away. So he has to get something ready for there. And actually what we then find, down at the bottom of the next page, he says 10 days later, his eye is somewhat recovered and he can go back to work. The really curious thing is, of course, that the trouble with his eyesight happens on the chorus. How dark, O Lord, are thy decrees. The thing about it is 23rd of February actually was his birthday.
It's suddenly become rather painfully autobiographical.
Certainly so. There's a sense of fate about this.
His creative life was over. It wasn't long before he'd lost the sight in both eyes. For the next few years, he struggled on, helped by assistants, revising old works and tirelessly promoting the performance of his music.
Every time you get to know the music of a great composer, your exploration throws up lots of questions about who that person might be or might have been, because somehow the music will always feel autobiographical. Handel came to Britain and, as people so often claim, ended up becoming more British than the British. But for him personally, it must have always felt unusual to have made his whole world in a country where he would only ever be perceived as a foreigner. So he must have been a pretty strong individual, able to take the knocks, that he could more or less completely reinvent himself. He knew what he wanted and he was damned sure he was going to get it. All great people who've achieved anything in any walk of life have had to be quite ruthless. But I find that a conundrum because his music is so deeply human and so potent and so theatrical, so come hither, so unput-downable. And yet it seems to me the man behind the music must have been incredibly tough, which probably didn't make him very likeable. But goodness me, the legacy is worth volumes. One night, on returning from a performance of Messiah at Covent Garden, Handel was seized with a sudden weakness, and he retired to his bed, never to rise again. On the 14th of April 1759, he passed away peacefully at the age of 74. Over 3,000 mourners attended his funeral, which was given full state honours. After his death, his reputation would continue to grow, and the engine was Messiah.
In the years following Handel's death, Great Britain grew increasingly rich and powerful, and Handel's music became part of the very fabric of our national life. In the next episode of The Birth of British Music, I'll discover how at the end of the 18th century, another foreigner, the Austrian Joseph Haydn, became our musical national hero.
If you'd like more information on Handel and also for extra video footage and interviews, just visit bbc.co.uk/composers and click on the Handel homepage. Next year on BBC Two, Rolf Harris guest hosts on Have I Got a Bit More News for You?